Well, hi there, everybody. Welcome to the midweek edition of the Gary Neville Podcast. We're talking to you from the Emirates Stadium, and we've seen Liverpool do better in London than Manchester City did 48 hours ago. Let's talk about this game first, Gary. How do you sum it up?
Classic title-winning performance. Not that Liverpool, we know they've got a big fight in front of them against Manchester City and the other teams that they've got to play, but if you ever thought of a game that reminded me of the sort of years gone by when you think something's happening, those words come into your sort of mind in the dressing room, something's happening here. You get through that difficult first period of a match where you're not playing well, the other team are on top, the crowd are up, they're in good form, and you get through it, not comfortably, but you sort of you stand your ground. You get a bit of a telling off at half-time from your manager, and you even have a go at each other maybe, and you come out early, and then you go and go bop, bop. And that's what Liverpool did. And not only did they go and do that then, they go and saw the game out beautifully. But before they went and did the sort of, if you like, the goal in the goal, the keeper makes a world-class save. And the amount of times that I played in games whereby you relied upon a Schmeichel or a Van der Sar save, and you thought, how big was that moment? You don't look back on them too much at the end of the season. They'll be forgotten about moments, but they're huge. The players don't forget them. The coaches don't forget them. The strong arm of Alisson there, where Odegaard has that chance. And it had everything about a title-winning team, where you've got strength off the bench, where your players on the pitch that you've been playing really well. Diaz has been outstanding. Jota, who we know has had a brilliant career at Liverpool in this last couple of seasons, they're just not quite at it. And then Salah comes off the bench, Firmino come off the bench, and they have the big impact in the game. So everything that you would imagine in a title-winning performance was there. Now, they might not win it because they're actually playing up against the most ridiculously good team in Manchester City. But the hallmarks are there, the form's there, the patterns are there. And if you're Liverpool, you're really, really confident going into these last 9 games. I'm not saying City aren't, but if you're Liverpool, you're confident. You're in every competition. You've won the Carabao Cup. You've got 5 players up front that can win you any single game. You've got a great back 4. You've got a great goalkeeper. The experience in midfield with Thiago, Fabinho and Henderson is enormous, with Milner obviously and others to come in. So there's a lot to say about how Liverpool could be for the first time beyond tonight, I think, favourites for the title. And that's a big statement for me, because I've said Manchester City all the way through. But what I saw on Monday night has just happened a couple of times this season, not too many. Liverpool have only not scored once. Manchester City haven't scored 4 times in games. And that
Twice against Crystal Palace.
Twice against Palace. And that could just be the difference at the end. May not be, because Pep Guardiola is a genius of a manager and he could see them home. But it wouldn't surprise me if this Liverpool team won the title.
Well, we talked about the impact of a substitute in Bobby Firmino and obviously Salah as well. And Manchester City didn't make any changes. I was at the game watching and seeing the big names warming up, like Raheem Sterling, Gabriel Jesus and Gundogan, not brought on. Pep Guardiola's done that a few times. It wasn't as though it was a special night in that respect. He played the Manchester derby at Old Trafford. He didn't make a substitution then, but they won that. Were you surprised? And is that something that now, 48 hours later, we look back on and say, that's a comparison that doesn't set favourably with what Klopp's done tonight?
I think it's significant in terms of the options that Jurgen Klopp's got on the bench and how he's almost forced to make those changes because the 2 players behind him are world class. I sort of agreed at the time during the game, so it's okay to sort of rewrite history a couple of days later. And, who are we to question Pep Guardiola? But because of how deep Crystal Palace were, I wasn't quite sure it suited Sterling or Jesus in terms of how the game was. I thought it suited the players who could manipulate the ball more, like Grealish and Foden and the others that he had in the team, like Bernardo Silva. Because to bring on sort of Sterling and Jesus, he would have probably had to have taken off one of those players that we're talking about. So I actually didn't surprise me too much, but I have to say it does tell us about what he has got to call upon compared to, look, he's got an unbelievable squad, Pep Guardiola, but he hasn't got a striker. He doesn't have centre forwards who score 30, 35 goals. And Liverpool tonight have Salah and Firmino to call upon. And, he still made the substitution after Jota scored. But it is significant, I think. It's hit me in this last couple of weeks, as it has everybody that's watched Liverpool. The emergence of Diaz is incredible. And tonight's probably his weakest game that he's had. But it doesn't matter, because the bench is strong. And when we were strong in '99, You think of the Champions League final. Cole and York have been the best pair all season. They've been absolutely outstanding, but it didn't happen for them. And Sheringham and Solskjaer come off the bench. And that's what great teams have, that ability to change the game from the bench when it's not going well. Like I said, there isn't anything that I saw tonight that wasn't the absolute typical championship-winning type performance going back through history of a team struggling with a form, getting through a period in the game, seeing it out, and then winning the game through substitutes and changes and sort of then. I mean, at the end, that game didn't resemble... It felt like a different game completely in the first half an hour. We were watching a game for the last 10, 15 minutes that felt like it didn't exist all night, but it did. They made it comfortable in the end. It was a brilliant night for Liverpool, that.
Just a word in passing for Arsenal, who've obviously improved, but just can't score against Liverpool. I mean, that is extraordinarily disappointing for Mikel Arteta. And that Odegaard chance, and you don't need to go back over Alisson save, but that was the moment, 1-0 up, and who knows what happened, but it didn't happen.
No, I mean, his job tonight, Mikel Arteta, I think he's quite a simple one. I don't think anybody in the stadium would want him to say anything other than, look, that was a really good performance for 55, 60 minutes. We've made a mistake and then a great team got on top of us. But let's forget about that now. Let's make sure that's not, if you like, dented our confidence. It's not playing on our minds because we've got to go again in 3 days. And it was my sort of thing coming out of Old Trafford last night. I was trying to think of any positive whatsoever from a Manchester United point of view. And that is they do have a clear run now. They've got 1 goal and it's top 4. And I said 10 days ago that I didn't trust Arsenal. And that's not because I don't like Arsenal. I don't like what Mikel Arteta's doing, or I actually don't like what the players are doing. I really do. I've enjoyed the performance tonight. In fact, organisationally and shape and authority on the ball and confidence, they're far better than Manchester United. But I said I didn't trust them because we've not seen them go through this Mikel Arteta team, the last 10 games of the season, with a little bit of pressure on them that hasn't existed before because people expect them now to finish 4th. And tonight I thought that this would be a test of their ability, and I think they've passed that test. I think they've played a really good game. And it doesn't, to be fair, embarrass them in any way that they've got beaten by Liverpool. This is one of the great Premier League teams of all time, let alone, this season. However, what will be a real test is Saturday lunchtime. And if they go and get 3 points at Villa, I think you'd still say Arsenal are big favourites. But if they do go to Villa and they drop points or lose, I think that's where you'd then start to think there's a real top 4 race on, which I think there is anyway. And I think that I've still got that sneaky feeling that Manchester United just have so much more to call upon in terms of players. Manchester United, they've got an unbelievable squad. They've got a great bunch of players. They're not playing anything like a team at this moment in time. And they have been the odd bunch for 2 or 3 years. I don't know how many times we refer to that saying, but they are an odd bunch of players and they're an odd team. And they could go and win 7 or 8 out of the last 9 games. They could. They've got that in them. They're not playing well enough to, but they do tend to play, badly at times and win games through moments. So I think we've got a real top 4 race, but I think Arsenal can be proud tonight of how they've played. The most important thing is they've got to respond on Saturday at Villa. They've got Chelsea to come, they've got Arsenal to come, they've got Tottenham to come. Forget about that. It's the Villas they have to win. Because Manchester United have got big games as well that they have to play. They have to go to Anfield and they have to play Chelsea as well. So they've both got those big games to play. It'll be how they do against the Aston Villa aways of this world that will really define whether they will finish in the top 4.
Go back to 1999 because, I'd like to ask you, 9 games left for the top 2, but other competitions as well. So how do you get through that without being distracted from, obviously, to be champions of England is a fan, and especially getting to pip your big rival to do it would be a wonderful achievement. But they've got other issues. I mean, Liverpool love being in Europe, and City got to win in Europe to really fulfil their destiny, they feel. There's the FA Cup thrown in as well, which comes up next. So what is your memory of that and how it might apply to these 2 clubs?
We did a countdown. We almost removed the competitions from it. We almost did a countdown of, say, 13, 14 games to go or possible games to go. And we just thought of it as what would be remove the element of the competition. We've got to win these 14 games. And that's how we play. I remember Jim Ryan, our coach at the time, who was assistant to Steve McLaren and Sir Alex Ferguson, doing that countdown, 11 to go, 10 to go, 9 to go, and really focusing on the game rather than the competition. Liverpool have got the FA Cup at the weekend. I think if you went to Pep Guardiola now and said, should we do a deal, Jurgen? I'll have the Champions League this season, you can have the league, and I think he'd probably do it, but it doesn't work like that. Look, it's going to be so tough for a team to win a treble. Hats off to anybody that does it. We were absolutely at full pelt in every game, having to pull out of the bag last-minute victories so many times, call upon, the substitutes regularly to win games, the whole squad involved. The manager rested 6 players in the FA Cup semi-final against Arsenal. People may not remember it, but it was an incredible decision and risk at that time. People said, "What are you doing? How can we play even we in the dressing room thought 5 or 6 changes from the game in the first semi-final. It was the last FA Cup semi-final replay ever. But Jurgen Klopp has proven over many, many years, as has Pep Guardiola, they are brave, brilliant managers. They've got squads to call upon. They'll have to use them. There'll be games that they'll have to what would be not take a chance in, but rotate the squads and trust the players. And they've shown that tonight that Liverpool can do that. But to win 3 or 4 trophies will be... I still don't think it can happen. I never believe it can happen until I see it, because every little thing's got to go well. But these 2 teams are great teams. They truly are great teams. Honestly, the levels that they've put in over 4 years, Liverpool had a dip last season, but I think it was explainable by the fact that, Virgil van Dijk was injured and other things, COVID, and it just doesn't suit Liverpool as a football club. Doesn't suit any club playing without fans, but Liverpool more than most, I think. So I just have to say that, whatever happens, they're 2 great teams, and we're going to have a brilliant... We didn't think we had a title race 6 to 8 weeks ago. We're thinking, here we go. The long roll in, watching City keep 80% possession in games, and it'll be a procession, but they've got something, this Liverpool team. They've got resilience, they've got spirit, they've got character and personality, and City know they're in for a major, major fight here. And he'll want that, Pep Guardiola. I think he wants these major battles. If you're the great boxer, if you're the great rugby team, if you're the great football team, you need to make sure you've beaten the best along the way, and that's what they're going to have to do here to get those 1, 2, 3 trophies in the bag that they're obviously all going for. And
they push each other, don't they? That's why we're getting such standards, I guess.
Absolutely. It's very difficult for the others to think about what the levels that these 2 are at, because these 2 are at such high levels. They do push each other. They demand, you can't make a mistake. I mean, City have drawn away at Crystal Palace on Monday. That's, 15, 20 years ago, you're thinking that could be the point that wins you the title. You're now thinking that could be the point that loses you the title, in the sense that, you've dropped 2. And that's incredible. That just tells you where they're at. Liverpool have won 9 on the bounce. I always historically was told by Sir Alex Ferguson on the run-in, don't worry, they'll drop points. Don't worry, they'll drop points. That's what he told us. Teams will drop points on the way in. These teams don't drop points on the way in. Now, they may. But you know what I'm saying? They don't lose games unexpectedly. Now, we could have an incredible title race where they could lose 2 or 3 games each, and that would be even more incredible. But you just don't feel like they can. And you feel that this game on April 10th that we've got, Liverpool going to Manchester City, is an absolute blockbuster. Can't wait for the game, really, in the sense of how much we'll be riding on it. Because the team that wins that will truly feel like they're in pole position, and they will be in pole position. But the title is in Liverpool's hands, but it's also in Manchester City's hands. It's a great place for us to be, to watch as... Well, I'm not a neutral. I don't like both of them, but I can't do anything about it, unfortunately. If I could sort of, put Leicester in there or someone else even, not even my own team at this moment in time.
We can't. I can't let you go without talking about Chelsea. The sanctions and the situation, and you know what it's like to run a football club as well as being an outstanding ex-player. How do you see maybe the morale or lack of morale? And Tuchel is being a wonderful spokesman for the situation, being asked questions that football managers probably shouldn't be asked, but he's taken it on board. And I guess in the dressing room, he's uttering the same sort of inspiring words. But it's unique, isn't it? I can't recall in all my years of being around the game anything like this.
No, not at all. And I think it's typical of the last 18 months, 2 years, Martin, where the leaders in football are in the dressing rooms and they're on the benches. They're not in the stands. They go missing, those lot, when it gets tough, and they make poor decisions. The decision yesterday on the Middlesbrough tickets. They're so removed from reality, it's untrue. The Super League told us that. The Super League told us that. They are so removed from the reality of what's happening in these seats behind us, where these fans are paying the money and come and watching. They have no idea. And every time they make a decision, it's the wrong one. And that's the top 6 clubs. So they've proven that to us, and Chelsea have proven it as well over this last few weeks, appointing the trustees, putting Emma Hayes and Piara Power and Bruce Buck and others in, maybe not Bruce Buck because he's obviously in the hierarchy in the club, but other people who are good people in the game in the firing line in front of them, putting Thomas Tuchel regularly in the firing line in front of them. That's what they do. And the Premier League, to be fair, I feel a little bit sorry for the Premier League executive, but they haven't got a voice at all at this moment in time to be able to grab it by the scruff of the neck and say, this is what we're going to do, because they can't, because they're compromised and they're conflicted. And when you go to the actual clubs, as Richard Masters, and say, what we're going to do with this, you've got the Newcastle owners over here. You've got the Manchester City owners. You've got the other owners that are thinking, well, hang on a minute, this could come my way soon if we're not careful. And they all sort of wince away, and they can't. They're sort of, if you like, deadlocked. They're stuck, and it has to change. It has to change. There is no doubt. So from Chelsea's point of view, well done to the players, well done to the manager for what would be fronting up. You do footballers proud, and you do what would be coaches proud, and I think that's really important to say. But for those above, I'm sorry, it doesn't work anymore. I think there is going to be a large rejection of the elite and hierarchy. There is a large rejection of the elite and hierarchy in English football, but I think it's going to come in society soon as well. It's just time and time again that the people on the streets are being basically having the wool pull over their eyes, and we're being conned constantly. And it's not going to happen. You know, yesterday, they flipped the decision inside 3 hours because social media now is the voice of the people. And they're close to the ground. They understand. We're on them straight away. You can't get away with bad decisions. You know, you can't get away with bad decisions, and they're making bad decisions. So for me...
But who's going to make the decision to get Chelsea out of this?
No, I'm convinced that, Martin, Chelsea have to be allowed to be sold. The government have to ease their restrictions to allow the club to be sold, and they have to ease their restrictions to allow the club to be operated so that they don't go bust. I'm absolutely fixed on that. We can't lose Chelsea Football Club over this. I'm absolutely convinced that that's a given for everybody. I don't think anybody wants to see Chelsea go to the wall. We don't want that. So they have to somehow work out a way of seeing this. I think bids by Friday is the sort of the word on the street. If we believe that to be true, then there'll have to be a period of time to allow that sale to go through, because legals on a deal of 2 million, let alone 2 billion, you know, are going to take more than what we believe is the 10 days that Chelsea have got funds left to operate and pay the players and other such things. So I suspect there's going to be almost like a heads of terms agreed, a sale accepted, and then they'll have maybe 4 weeks to complete, and the government will allow that sale to move through, and they'll probably monitor it and watch it. The Premier League, I'm not sure what their role in this is, to be honest with you, at this moment in time. They reacted off the back of the government sanctions to actually suspend Abramovich, so I think they're in reactive mode based on what the government are doing. The government are leading this.
You can understand that, though.
I can understand it. I'd like to see leadership from football within, but I know it's not there. That's why I've been calling for a regulator for the last 3 years. I know it doesn't exist, that the football leadership doesn't exist in this country to be able to manage these big situations. It's too big, and it's coming hurtling down the street at football. This idea that you can separate the political and social issues from football and sport nowadays is gone. That was gone 3 or 4 years ago. So I think we're in a situation now whereby the government will allow the sale to go through. Chelsea will have a new double, triple, quadruple billionaire owner, or multi-billionaire owner. Whether they're as good a football operator as Roman Abramovich has been and bring the success to the club is remains to be seen. But the club will be in new hands of rich people, and Chelsea will survive, and they'll have a football team in the Premier League, and they'll have large investment, because what will happen is when the new billionaire owners come in, the first thing that they'll have to do is get the football fans on side. And the only way, one of the only ways to get the football fans on side is invest in the team. Keep Tuchel. Keep the players that you've currently got. Bring new players in and put a mark on it to say, look, we're building a new Chelsea, a Chelsea beyond Roman Abramovich. So I'm convinced these things will happen. And they should be allowed to happen. Absolutely should be allowed to happen. Chelsea cannot go bust off the back of these sanctions. That is an absolute sort of no-no for me. I'm adamant, and I'm sure everyone's adamant on it. So we'll see what happens in the next few weeks, but I suspect we'll see Chelsea in the new hands of owners that will take the club forward, and we'll see the back of Roman Abramovich's era at Chelsea.
I can't let you go because people will expect you to say, what were you doing last night and what did you think of it?
I was at Old Trafford.
Yeah,
I was on the side of the pitch at Old Trafford. I was the closest I've been to the fans for a long time. Usually, ordinarily, we're up here in the gantry and we're sort of, sat above the fans. But last night I was on the side of the pitch working for another country's television channel. And the first thing to say is that the desperation and the rejection and dejection on the face of the fans at the end was unreal. They were so disappointed. They were stood there in disbelief. Manchester United wilted and were flaky in that second half. They had no idea how to get back in that game. They made 5 substitutions that didn't have any impact. In fact, they got worse. It was a really bad night. But I felt down about Manchester United for some time.
You weren't surprised, were you, about last night?
Wasn't surprised at all. I mean, I got some criticism from Manchester United fans on social media after the Tottenham game on Saturday. I went back in our studio and was critical of the team and was delighted with what I'd seen with Cristiano Ronaldo's hat-trick. He lit up the stadium and the fans went home buzzing. But I couldn't help thinking, that performance is going to get you beat on Tuesday. I kept thinking it all night, all Sunday. They're going to get beat. I never thought for 1 second before that game. I saw a couple of ex-players on the touchline that I played with before the game, and I said, they'll get beat. I'm worried they'll get beat. Because I think they'll be in training, that lot, on Sunday and Monday, telling themselves that they're all right because they beat Tottenham and they're in great shape, and Cristiano scored a hat-trick and their confidence is back. But they're kidding themselves if they think that level of performance against Tottenham was going to be able to do anything against Atletico Madrid. A hardened, warrior-type team that have been through the mill with a manager who knows how to win, been round the block, and that was never going to be good enough. And I have to say, at the end, it was just hope. I was sat there at the end thinking, even that last corner, they'll score. Manchester United always score, but they don't anymore. They don't score anymore. Because the reality of it is that something's missing, something big is missing, and it comes from the top. I've said before about owners, it comes from the top. We heard Joel Glazer say some time ago he's going to engage with the fans. Flights are open, Joel. You can get to Manchester. Let's see you over here. Let's go and see you sort of talk to the fans properly. Explain that vision. You've got a new CEO in place, but you can't just leave it to the new CEO. You've got to come over. He said off the back of the Super League, he was going to change the way he operated the club, and he was going to come over and see the fans. He's not done. Not that I know of anyway, unless he slipped in without me knowing. And not many people slip into Manchester without me knowing.
Absolutely.
So, you know, or without the journalists knowing for sure. So I have to say, I think that for me, it comes from the top. They sent Tom Brady over, which was nice on Saturday, but it'd be nice if they sent themselves over. I have to say that, you know, it was a bad night for Manchester United. However, I don't know why. I said it to you before the game. I think we were talking about it. I still think they could finish fourth. Whether that's wild hope, whether that's the sort of, if you like, the devil in me, I just still feel like Manchester United could finish fourth and Arsenal might not do it. It wouldn't surprise me if they didn't, and it wouldn't surprise me if Arsenal finished fourth, and you'd have to say, well done to them, they deserve it. But it also wouldn't surprise me. If I was having a tenner, which I don't bet, I would probably say I'd go for United. I don't know why. I just have something about them that makes me feel that they'll go and do it.
You own a football club, you can't bet.
No, I wouldn't. Well, I wouldn't bet. Anyway, I don't bet. But you're right. You have a good point, Martin, actually. No, but I was so disappointed last night. I've come out of it today a little bit because it was what I expected. They've got a period of time now without football, Manchester United. I think that's helpful. I think if they were going to Anfield on Sunday, I mean, I wouldn't like the idea of that. So that game's off, which I think is helpful. Not saying that they'll win it next time round, but they'll surely be in a better position than they would have been having been knocked out of Europe. At least it allows them to regroup. I think the fact that there is some certainty that Ralph Rangnick won't get the job, and that's nothing to do with Ralph Rangnick and the job that he's done. I don't think any of what's happened last night or anything before that is anything to do with him. It's been appalling all season. When Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was the manager and he's not been able to improve it, Ralph Rangnick, but I won't put that down to him. I do remove him from it, but what I do say is that it's in no doubt that Manchester United need a new manager, but they also need to look very hard above that, very hard. You've got some smart operators in the clubs that they're up against, not just Jurgen Klopp and Pep Guardiola. Yes, they might set the tone, they're the front men in the band, but you need the bass player, you need the lead guitarist.
You need the men who
need the drummer.
You need the men who found Martinelli, the men who found Diaz. Because that kind of thing isn't happening.
It's unbelievable that Diaz. I mean, Diaz was going to Tottenham. He's then gone to Liverpool. There's not even been a mention of him going to Manchester United. Manchester United are going to lose Cavani at the end of the season. They're probably going to lose Pogba. They've lost Greenwood. Rashford's out of form. Martial's gone to Seville, but probably go at the end of the season. So you think they're going to need 2 or 3 at the end of the season in those positions, and they weren't even mentioned. And then you watch that lad. I mean, he's not had his best game tonight, Diaz. But you watch him in the Carabao Cup final, and I watched him at Saturday at Brighton, and I watched him last week. What a player he is! Tough, aggressive, works hard, creates chances. His reaction when they give the ball away is unbelievable. Sprints back, and yeah, the recruitment, I have to say, has been, you know, disappointing for a long time. I think it's been better in the last 2 or 3 years. I know some people will disagree with that. I don't think anybody at the time thought they were bad signings when they signed Varane or Sancho or Cristiano Ronaldo. I think everybody thought they were good signings, and I agree, I thought they were good signings. So there is something about the coaching aspect which needs to be put right, but there's also an element of culture and belief and feeling that it's a proper football club that does things the best, does things the right way, that's an elite operator, that thinks about excellence all the time. What is excellence? What does excellence look like in a football sense? That means doing everything well. Everything well. Not just the bits that sort of everyone sees on the pitch, which is not doing well at this moment in time. You've got to do everything well behind the scenes. You've got to treat people well. You've got to know everybody's name. You've got to create that feeling that there's a family there, that's that togetherness. That's what Pep has created at Manchester City with Khaldoon and with obviously Soriano and Begiristain, and that's what Jurgen Klopp and the owners at Liverpool have created. They've created that spirit. I said 4 years ago, when you feel it in the ground, that connection between the bench, the team, the fans and the director's box, you get that right, and you've got one hell of a powerful football club.
And Arsenal are getting closer to that than Manchester
United. They're getting closer. There's no doubt that fact that was actually it's important you mentioned that, Martin, because there was the fans that stayed behind at the end, and not everyone did. There was a big Arsenal. There was like an aggressive Arsenal shout at the end of the game after the final whistle that I just heard before I came on this podcast. And that was almost like a send-off. We're with you at Villa on Saturday. I know we won't be with you because there's only a couple of thousand fans can probably go. But there was a message to the Arsenal fans. We're okay with that tonight. You gave your all. You're playing against a great team. And I think that's important. You know, you see the sort of atmosphere at Old Trafford sometimes at the end of games now. And the Manchester United fans are incredible with the team and with the manager through thick and thin. But they started to give them little bits of them little boos at the end of the game and at half times, and they're right to do that because it's been really disappointing what they've been sort of served up. And Arsenal are in a better position, but I'm not sure they've got a stronger squad, and I'm not sure they've been through this sort of what would be this pressurised running. Some of those young players haven't been through it. The goalkeeper hasn't been through it. Ben White hasn't been through it. Some of the young forwards haven't been through it. So it's important that the experienced players here stand up. But we'll find out about Arsenal in this next few weeks. We'll find out about Mikel Arteta a little bit more. I've got no doubts he's one of the outstanding young coaches in Europe at this moment in time. Absolutely outstanding. He has his team set up brilliantly. They're well coached, really well coached. And I think that's important to note, that sometimes you don't get the result, but you can see a team's idea, and that's what we can see with Mikel Arteta.
I think we've got a lot to look forward to.
We have.
Gary, thanks very much.
Thank you.